Welcome. Whilst the Kenny Veach M Cave mystery has attracted a range of different hikers following in the footsteps of Kenny, what's come along with this mystery is factors and events caught on camera which open up sub-mysteries. For example, the M Cave symbol caught on camera which appeared to be on a rock down a mysterious unknown canyon. And in recent time, another fellow hiker known as Jeff Clark was the one responsible for locating it and capturing it on camera. More about that later, but regarding the backstory of the original hiker that came across it, it was not Kenny Veach. It was a fellow explorer known as Really Robin. Now, a bit of a peculiar, strange, unknown individual with their motives unknown. Some people questioning the person's actions. That is a mystery itself. But at least at the time of 2020 onwards, when Robin got involved, very enthusiastic, he set out there just like Kenny and some of the other hikers in hopes of locating Kenny and possibly the M Cave. The thing was though, Robin appeared to be in a completely different location and canyon. The likes of Jeff Clark was wondering where it was. It took some time to work out, but at the time, another strange thing was caught on camera. Besides a skull gently placed on top of a rock, maybe as a warning, the further Robin went up the canyon, he eventually got into an open space with tall walls on both sides and the mountains towering over him in the distance. But up ahead, further on, was a strangely coloured rock which stood out from all around. Here is the footage. Make sure to look very closely.
I've almost reached my stage 5 of my search for M Cave and Kenny Veach. Terrain very similar to what Kenny Veach was describing, how it was at floor level. We have reached floor level at this elevation, looking for M Cave on the wall against the right or left side, in between like a small canyon right now, but it's not really canyon. I think it's, what's this? Nothing. Dead end. Continue search.
At first glance, it would be hard to see since there was a jump cut in the footage when Robin abruptly turned around. But it did catch my interest at the time. I decided to pause the video because I noticed there was something ahead. The colour of the rock laying on the ground stood out from everything else, almost like a tanned colour. And just above appeared to be a slab of rock resting on top, which was almost creating the image of some kind of opening, like a mine shaft. But it was the tanned colour rock, the face, the side of it, which caught my interest most, and there appeared to be a symbol, whether it be ancient or some kind of mysterious one created by Kenny Veach. It made me look closer at it. It appeared to be some kind of square box with a flick top left corner of the screen. Now at the time I made a video of it, trying to figure out if anyone had answers behind it, whether Kenny Veach was truly responsible for creating some kind of mysterious symbol, acknowledgement of where the true M Cave is, almost like the key to locating it, or if it was some kind of old ancient unsolved mystery. As time passed by, one fellow Kenny Veach investigator online known as Atari stepped on in. She was very helpful, did her research, and managed to find links to some different languages, such as Hebrew. Certain symbols in Hebrew translated to specific letters of the alphabet, and it just so happened, whether it be by coincidence or there was a meaning behind it, the symbol that was on that tanned colour rock in Hebrew translated to the same symbol which meant the letter M. M of all things, such as M Cave. So it was very creepy at the time. A lot of questions came about. Why was Robin there? Did he see it himself? In his footage, he made no reference to it. He glanced past it, and that was unfortunate. But not all hikers see everything through their eyes when they're there. It's those that are online that watch the videos afterwards that pick up on much more darker mysteries. And ever since, it captured the attention of other hikers, such as Jeff Clark, who wanted to set out in locating this mysterious canyon with a mysterious M symbol rock, to see if the M cave was truly in the area. As time passed by, there were a few failed attempts. Another investigator known as Jay Silverheels thought he found it. Turned out he was wrong. Jeff Clark originally tried going once before at around 2022, but it didn't quite work out. But he wasn't that far away from the real canyon. You fast forward to now, in most recent time, 2024, Jeff Clark was able to locate it and also capture it on camera. Let's take a closer look at the latest update on this mystery. Hi there, Warlike Raph here. As said, it was important for me to tell you the original story as to why this area and object became such a mystery and remained unsolved for quite some time. If you have suddenly joined in this live premiere, I do advise you to rewind back to the beginning. You don't want to miss anything, and that applies right here, right now too. Welcome to those who are watching. What we need to get into now is the latest breaking news from Jeff Clark's point of view. I'm going to be sharing with you some key photos of the area up close and personal with the rock from the front, rear and up top view. So we get a better and closer look at it compared to really Robin, who just glanced past it. We need to take a closer look to see what is really on the rock and what's round the side, considering there appeared to be like a slab of rock on top, which created some kind of visual look of an opening. That's what we're going to do today. But it's most important that we start off with the location of the area of interest, just so you know where it was and where Jeff Clark previously hiked back in 2021 when originally looking for it. So I'll show you just a brief photo now from Jeff Clark's point of view, and then we're going to do a brief map analysis. As you see on screen is roughly in the area of Joe May Canyon, which you would see on the right hand side there to the right of Joe May Guzzler. That's where Kenny Veach did his hike route loop and looped back on the other side of the mountain coming down this way. But if we look in the middle section of it where you've got canyons and rocks, this is the area of interest. So lower down at the bottom of the screen, named Fish Hook Berm Wrong Canyon, that's the original hike by Jeff. Then further up, Really Robbins Canyon, the location of interest, following up to the location of the rock. Now what we need to do is go on Google Earth now, so I can flip the image and we get a 3D model of the area, and I have labelled it. There we are. If I zoom on in, you can clearly see the marked locations which apply back to Jeff Clark's point of view. I will zoom in very closely in a second, but just as a highlight, down here, Joe May Canyon, this is Joe May Road. You see that dirt road as it works its way down there and follows up to Joe May Canyon on the left and Black Cake Canyon straight up that way. And over ahead that way where it's a bit open, flat ground, this is the way Kenny Veach came back up from his hike to get to the road. And that's where he would have passed those canyons, but I guess to Kenny at the time it wasn't of his interest. Over this way, heading up that canyon, little Joe May Canyon. And as you follow it, you got the mine shaft within the area as well. As you see here, where that brown mark was, Wild Horse Pass. Go over it, come from down, Pitcher Canyon, work your way down, Pitcher Canyon, and then you're heading this way, which would be south, and then you pass by the two canyons here, right? So as you're on flatter ground here, when you work your way up to those canyons, it does get extreme pretty quick. So you get the idea. So these canyons, although may not be a part of Kenny Veach's hike route, whether you apply it to his final hike or his October hike where he made it back safely, this was the area Robin was exploring. Robin trying to prove it to people and trying to add in from his point of view when solving the case, but coming up short because he was in the wrong area, but indirectly he documented something very strange and it caught our interest, and ever since we've been trying to solve it, make sense. And thankfully, we've got to that point now. But it took some time. You had Jay Silverheels very adamant that he knew the location where it was, and that if he got it wrong, he would throw a cream pie in his face. Maybe that will happen now. I guess we'll see. But what we've got here, first of all, highlighted in the orange line marker, that's the 2021 hike by Jeff Clark. If you rewind back to the beginning of this video where I was telling the original story, I did show certain photos from Jeff Clark's 2021 hike. Be sure to rewind back for reference there. And he calls it like a fish hook because of the way it hooks around, curls around, right? So you can see. Now the actual canyon is shorter in length compared to really Robin's, highlighted in yellow, but it still took a fair bit of time. Jeff Clark, whether he underestimated it or not, was surprised by the time it took because, it was quite an extreme location and the towering heights of the side walls, quite enclosing at times, and in the distance, the tall mountains, quite overwhelming in a way. So originally, the wrong canyon, Jeff Clark went up this way. And as you can see, it's pretty steep. And that's even by the standards of Google Earth, which can underestimate the true danger of these hikes. But it does appear to be quite steep. Jeff Clark did manage it, worked his way up over this way. But the mountains, the flat tops, let me just zoom mine out a little bit, glitches. Flat tops overhead, yeah, it didn't quite match the same shape as really Robin's footage. So it was debunked as the wrong location. Okay, that's what it looks like. I'll give you the coordinates roughly of the wrong canyon, if it will allow me. There we go. Maybe I need to move it down because the marker's in the way. So there's the coordinates of the very first canyon, the wrong location. Okay? You can pause the video, you can rewind it back if you need to make notes. Now, look how close it was then. The correct canyon, the one Jeff Clark did just recently in 2024. So close together, but I think on top of the 2021 hike, because of the timing, Jeff Clark wouldn't have had any more time to explore the next one by the side. But later on, Jeff Clark came to that conclusion that it was the one just ahead. This one here, this canyon. A lot more narrow. Doesn't look as steep in some areas, but very brutal and extreme. Jeff Clark noted it himself, and Jeff has been out there multiple times now, so he does have experience. But the likes of Robin, that went very first time, Robin made it much harder on himself due to the hike he did, and I guess with less experience as well of the area, but he still managed it and made it back safely. So people would say that's quite impressive, right? So we just have a closer look at this canyon, the opening of it. Very narrow to begin with. If you wonder what the flashing things are, it's just the marker glitching, that's all. So you can see how narrow it really is, and it does seem extremely steep in areas. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe heading up this way, around this narrow rocky area before you get into the open, as I said in my video, before it, I believe this is the area, just give the coordinates roughly, if it will allow me. Roughly, this is probably the area where Robin came across that rock with the skull resting on top. Could be wrong, but if Robin is doing a canyon, and this is a single canyon, and I believe it leads to mainly a dead end from the looks of it, or the challenge of going any further, is it worth it? Maybe not. But lower down, where it's narrow, where the shadows are, kind of like Picture Canyon-esque, how it appears. I believe this is the location where that skull was found resting on the rock by Robin at the time, and also the area where in the background you had that little shallow cave which had, you know, the side profile of some kind of demonic face. Now, it wasn't an actual face, but it just looked like one. So this area emitting a presence, a dark atmosphere of mystery and intrigue. Now, I'm sure Jeff Clark can share his own experiences with actual footage and his own thoughts shortly in terms of how he felt, what it was like, was there any additional strange things noticed, any schools, etc. But you can clearly see, even the beginning of it is demanding, right? We can measure the distance as well, if possible. It goes into the open, becomes a bit wider now, but you see the rock walls on the left and right hand side, as we saw in the footage of Robin as he was making his way up, how he was looking on the right hand side, whether he got distracted or not, trying to search for possible M cave. None were found by Robin at the time. Jeff Clark didn't find a cave at the time recently, but he did come across the rock symbol. Now this is just a rough estimation, roughly in this area. I mean, I'm looking at that rock structure there. Roughly in this area, in this canyon area where the rock was located. So you get the idea, right? And once you're high up here, elevation, look at the mountainous region surrounding you up ahead. Quite daunting in a way. Now, would you be able to make your way up any further? Possibly, but probably not actually. Probably not, unless the map is a bit deceiving. I don't think it would be worth it. I think it's too dangerous to do. But the main factor is, the main goal was locating the correct canyon, which Jeff Clark did. Making his way up there and back safely, which he did. And also locating the rock and documenting it as well for additional analysis. That's exactly what Jeff Clark did. So he did a good job. And yeah. So, will it allow me to measure the distance if possible? This is a very rough one because Jeff Clark will probably have his own distance check. So we're in miles. Take in mind, even if the mileage is very low, the timing is greater. So it's just under 1 mile, at least how it appears on screen. Just under 1 mile. But that will take a few hours or so to complete because you got to go slower compared to if you was walking on flat ground, right? Okay. Flatter ground here wouldn't take as much time to cover even if you did longer distance. But this canyon here, because of how narrow and steep it is with potential risk of rockfall, unstable ground, your footing placement, the stability, if you needed a drink, going up a gradient steeper so it can take it out of you and then having to make your way back as well, going somewhat slow so you don't slip or bump your head, etc. With possible wildlife and if there's any snakes laying about or not, it does all add up. And on top, when you're actually at the rock symbol, you take a breather, you have a look at it, you take your photos, it can all accumulate time. So it's understandable as to why Jeff Clark tries to balance it out with doing the hike successfully, trying to document as one goes along, but being consistent and aware of time, right? So I do understand that. So you get the idea of the distance, not that bad. I mean, we could try and measure the distance here. See how long this one was. Right. About 0.6 miles. So even less, but still took a few hours to do because of the dangers of the area. So, we've had an aerial view, bird's eye perspective of what the area looked like. And I believe this is updated satellite imagery as well. We can also have a quick look here in case you're wondering at the flat top. You can see like pathway here onwards. When you look back down at where the rock symbol is, you can see the elevation, you can see the drop. Look at that drop. Now, unless it's a bit deceiving on Google Earth, it does seem almost impossible. You can correct me if I'm wrong, if you've been there yourself, but you just get the true idea of the depth and the dangers. Okay? If you notice anything interesting, you can drop a comment down below or in the live chat if you are watching right now. There's no harm in looking at the side profile as well of the area. I said, where I've got that red symbol, I'm not saying that's literally the spot, but this is the canyon further up where it was roughly, okay? See some rocks there as well. Looks like a slab. So hopefully that's clear enough for you. What we'll transition on to now are the real-time photos of this mysterious rock symbol. Here we are, the moment you've all been waiting for. The tanned colour rock with the mysterious Hebrew M symbol on the side profile with a slab of rock on top. Now, this is from different angles. I've applied an arrow pointing at the front face profile of what we saw in Really Robin's footage when I zoomed in. It'll create a better perspective and understanding when trying to compare and contrast the characteristics, the features, the lighting, etc. Okay? So this is from Really Robin's footage, zoomed in and slightly enhanced just to make it a bit clearer because it was a little bit blurry, okay? And that was 2020. You compare it to now, 2024. Obviously with time, there can be a bit of weathering with the weather out there, the rain, the sun, the cold, the snow, etc. It can cause maybe possible erosion to a small extent. Take in mind that the angle of this photo is kind of diagonal, whereas this is face on, but this is further away, whereas this is much closer. This is taken at a time of where there's pure sunlight, but not as many shadows casted, at least from looking at this angle. But when comparing it to this one, there are shadows cast in certain areas, like what you see down there, near that rock, and even down there by the side of the tan coloured one. And as we know, when it comes to shadows being casted, it can conceal or it could even reveal depth of something, right? Kind of like that M-shaped cave up Picture Canyon for reference. So, in case anyone's wondering, that's just Jeff Claw's drink. He's not littering, don't worry. But I think we need to focus on the tanned colour rock first of all. Does it look the same? Pretty much the same colour. What about the shape? Pretty much the same shape. Take in mind that because it's taken from a different angle, it could look a bit different. Yeah. But we're looking at that front face of it. The front face of it, or at least from what it looks like the front face of it. Yeah. Just make sure it all lines up. So what you can see, you can obviously see cracks on the rock, right? And that's natural with time. Do we see any markings then? Anything prominent? No. But because it's not a flat surface and it's a bit bumpy and it dips and there's dents, well not dents within it, but it kind of goes in on itself, it creates a bit of depth, which meaning if there is sunlight and if there are shadows casted from certain angles, it could conceal it slightly. If there was a bit of an overhang of the rock itself, I don't know, that could lead to a bit of darkness and patchiness in spots, which then could make it a little bit more defined, a certain shape, what we're looking for. Kind of like what we see here, right? How there seems to be a bit of depth to it. You can see the ridges on the sides. You can see where, not chipped away by a human, but probably naturally with time as it's worn by weather. You see a bit on top as well. So there isn't really much to it, being honest, right? But where that arrow's pointed, it's not perfect. It looks almost like half a circle and almost the beginning of a square, but that shaping of it, if you looked at it directly from the front, from a distance, it could give that illusion of some kind of shape. And although it's not quite perfect here, I mean, you can see like a flick in the corner, see the outline. Basically, it's a crack, but from the distance, it looks like a carving, right? Now, I think there was some comments in the background, which Jeff mentioned about Atari. Her thoughts, maybe it was covered up, maybe it was filled in, that marker, that symbol, it's disappeared, it was once there. I'll just give you my honest thoughts. What I would say is when looking at this original photo, it definitely looks like there is something there, like a symbol, a carving, because of the colour of it. But then when comparing it to the latest photo here, and you zoom on in, it just doesn't look much. I can see some shapes and outlines, but it just looks like natural cracks, because it is natural cracks in the rock, as you see all around it, and on top as well. So that makes sense to me, natural. As for it possibly being filled in or covered in some way, I wouldn't say so, because I can't see any white seams. I can't see any like jigsaw puzzle pieces, if you get what I'm saying. If it was some kind of Hebrew symbol and with time someone made the distance, went out their way to come here and do the dangerous hike just to cover it, it does seem a little bit far-fetched. I mean, we can apply it to the concept of certain other areas of the hike where a person could have covered distance to fill in this or fill in that, remove this, remove that. If it was ever true, then there would have to be a much deeper reason behind it and a motive. But somewhere like here, with this canyon not really revealing much, at least from Robin's perspective, he didn't see the M cave, he didn't find Kenny. When Jeff Clark's been in recent time, Jeff didn't see anything, or at least from what I'm aware of, unless Jeff Clark adds on later, right? So there's not much more going on in this area. It's not a key hot spot. Then would there be any need for the environment being altered with, right? And of course, we don't have enough material or evidence at this moment to suggest Kenny Veach even went up this way, right? But at the time, back then, it was relevant with limited material and knowledge of the case that this could be something and it could link to the M cave. But when looking at it now, it seems less likely. But I do find it interesting, nevertheless, that this tanned colour rock does stand out amongst all the other grey, darker rocks. Why is that? I don't know, maybe it's fallen from further up. There seems to be light coloured rocks and dust up that way. You've got vegetation growing as well. Of course, you've got different coloured rocks there, and I think roots or so growing out of the ground, possibly. The next area of interest, I guess you could call it, is just above it, that slab of rock resting on top. And whilst it does cast a shadow underneath because of the overhang, the ridge of it, it really doesn't seem to go in much at all. It's just a few lower, smaller rocks underneath, piled on top of one another. And even when you look on that side, there's not really much to it. The opening, there's hardly an opening. And I'm sure Jeff Clark would have looked around the sides. If he wants to confirm it any further or debunk, feel free to do so, Jeff Clark, regarding this slab of rock and that little gap underneath it. Looks way too small to be going into it. And if you used to say that maybe that rock was rolled there because it's an opening into a cave, who's going to be rolling a rock like that in that terrain? Because it's going to be very heavy, right? We saw that smaller rock on the supposed covered M cave just before Picture Canyon, right? Over in the distance from here, more north. Well, yeah, kind of north in a way. And, you know, a smaller rock, that was moved, but I'm sure people would have struggled to move it themselves because it was heavy. You compare it to the scale of this rock, much larger and greater in size, weight, and everything, okay? So that slab of rock there, on top, is what you see here. Just from a slightly different angle. Okay, it's from a different angle, that's why it looks a bit different. But we do have some additional photos, as we see here, okay? That white glove there, I believe, is Jeff Clark's, okay? Don't worry, Jay Silverheels. Jeff Clark did not leave the glove behind. It doesn't mean Silverheels like, you gotta go on an expedition, man, to follow it down to track Jeff Clark's glove and locate it and bring it home safely. That's not needed. But let's just focus in on the rock once again from a different perspective. You look at it on top, looking down, And once again, you can see the cracks, the natural cracks in the rock, with the symbol there, which kind of looks like a bit of a square, which if there's a bit of shadowing, because with cracks, because it's a gap, because there's a bit of depth, and because of lighting, it can cast shadows. It can make it look black because there's a small little gap. So it'll stand out more. It's like if you was writing the letter M on a sheet of paper with a pencil, lightly, it's not going to show. But then if you do a slight outline around it in a black marker pen, well, obviously, it's going to really define it and make it stand out from a distance, for example. Okay? So at least from this side, there's not much going on, the profile of the rock. Nothing suspicious. No carvings or markings. On top, besides Jeff Claw's glove in good condition, not really much going on there either. Then on the side, although it's kind of hard to see, it slopes at an angle. There's a few shadows there, I believe, casted from the vegetation to the left as it overhangs that rock, that green vegetation. But on the side profile of that, it's very smooth and very flat. Does it look altered with? No, because when you look on top, that's quite smooth and flat in areas too. So it's no different. I don't see any fill-ins or cover-ups of suspicion going on. So even if someone said that the angle is incorrect and it's actually the angle over there, which what we saw from Robin's point of view, well, there's nothing on the side. Don't really see many cracks or gaps. So would that mean that what we originally saw here has disappeared? No. I said the bit on top could be a bit of a ridge, an overhang, cast a shadow just underneath. Another ridge there with a bit of a dent in the middle of it. I said, a bit lower down, it does look a bit janky in the corners. And as we see here, you see how that dips in a little bit, just like how it does there, and creates a bit of an overhang. Shadows. Shadows can make things either look bigger than what they are, or it can add to something that it's not the case. I mean, it's kind of like when we saw that recent footage from that other YouTube channel, the big one, where they were going on about some person reached out to do a satellite imagery, found the entrance to the M cave as it went in, like you had to descend into it, but that was a bird's eye view, and as we know, it's on the side of a mountain. It's not like a mine shaft where you'd have to go in vertical. So that was ruled out there, but it was the shadows at the time on that satellite imagery that created the shape of an M looking down at it. But what it really was the overhang and the ridge of a mountain which went in and out like an M. But if you used to go there in real time, real life, and look at it horizontally, on ground, boots on ground, you might see the overhang, but it doesn't mean to say there's an entrance there, right? And sometimes the shadows can fill in areas, even on ground level. There might be something in the corner, might be something on the ground. Other times you might be able to see it, but then when it's a bit darker, when the shadow's been casted, it's masked in darkness. And because we're looking at this in like daytime light, it's going to make everything a lot clearer, maybe not as defined. So it's harder to see things in a way compared to the outline of Robin's video, right? But once again, what we see here, we need to focus on top right corner. It doesn't go in that far from the looks of it. And there is another rock just resting underneath the slab. So what you see going into there is what we see, I believe, right here with that rock. You see the rock as it goes in under the slab, and it's very small. It's a very small crawl space. So even if this was deeper than you think, it's a crawl space. It's not realistic. It's not ideal for anyone, really. And like with Kenny Veach, how he described the opening to the cave, deep dark, shaped like an M on the side of a mountain, whether that's high up or low down, depending. And well, later he said it was ground level, so I guess that. And the same height as him. Well, this is not the same height, is it? Very low down. It'd probably be up to your knees, possibly, or under your knees, depending on the height of you. So There's not much suspicion going on here. A few loose rocks on the side. Pretty much it. You get the underbelly, or the lower part of it at least, where, once again, there's a few like little, I don't know, details on it, but not much of interest, right? When I see the side of this, it screams natural. It doesn't stand out in a suspicious way, to me at least, okay? If you do have different ideas, you can always share them down below. I don't really see any symbols or drawings, any carvings, right? And you wouldn't really have much opportunity either, because it's just very bumpy and uneven. You'd have more chance creating a carving on top somehow, okay? So that's just zoomed in. Looks like you might have a few loose rocks which are attached to it, breaking away with time, because take in mind, this rock may have come from higher up. No guarantee, but I don't know. Do you like, oops. Do you like how you get up there, how those rocks have kind of crumbled and tumbled down slightly? Take in mind, with this being a canyon, you've got mountains, you've got rock walls, higher up elevation, things can break, detach, and then roll down and gather at the either at the bottom of the canyon or the so far up the canyon on somewhat ground level, and then collects. That can happen with time, because it does stand out. This, it doesn't seem to belong there. I guess it may belong a bit higher up the canyon, just based off the colour of it. Yeah. So there you go. See if we've got any more angles. There's up close. There's another angle, okay, in case you're wondering. Even from that side there, there's not much going on, really. It's just cracks on top of cracks. But you see how it's a bit more prominent there because of the angle and the shadows casted. It does make it more prominent, that. So if it did complete some kind of shape, you could assume it's some kind of carving, because sometimes carvings can be quite deep. So that's like the idea behind it, okay? Looks normal from that side, looks normal on top, looks like any other rock. That's why I'd say just a different colour. Loose rocks up there. Very detailed camera work by Jeff Clark. You can see the scale now. When up close it might look a bit bigger, but further back it is smaller. Look at that hole, very small. Just a little gap underneath, that's all it really is. Not even much of a crawl space, because it won't really go anywhere. So, yeah. Do we have one further up? Yeah, so this is a bit more zoomed out. So, I mean, there's a small chance you could go up further so far. Is it worth it though? Probably not, because all it would do is, if somehow you were able to climb over and up and then come down onto the other side, you'd be going into the Little Joe May Canyon area of where Kenny Veach did his original hike, right? So you're not straying away, you're just going back on track to Kenny's route. But this area itself did hold mysteries. The question is, are there any others in the area or nearby? Up top, there you go, just zoom on in so you get a better look. You might think, what are those there? It's just like vegetation. In case you thought it was like a head or a person, it's just vegetation. I remember in the past there was some people talking about footage saying how, oh, this looks like there's a human on top of a mountain staring down. And as creepy as that may sound, it wasn't true. But to be honest, what I'd say is, where you see here, it's lightly coloured. Up there on the right hand side, coming off the screen, it could be from there, the tanned coloured rock, as it broke away and rolled down, possibly. No guarantee. Just my thoughts on the matter. And then there's, yeah, do you like how you see up there? Slightly tanned certain areas of it broke away, because it looks like it has crumbled with time. Anything else going on up there? I don't see anything personally. And as well, in this video, I didn't want to alter the colour or anything like that. I wanted the photos to remain as natural as possible, because if you did try enhancing it when it's already very clear, you'd only be like, kind of like putting words into someone's mouth. You're putting something into a photo when it's not. So it'd be manipulating it, and I don't want to go down that route, okay? Not with this. Don't see anything on the ground. I don't see any bones personally at the time. Of course, if possible, with Jeff Claw's footage, could also go over that to see if anything was missed out or not. But I don't see anything that odd. No. In conclusion, what I would say from analysing the area, the canyon, the rock specifically, the slab on top, the side, the rear, the top profile of it, it appears very natural. Compared to other areas we've looked at previously, like Sean Horlecker's supposed covered up cave, this rock though, which Robin first captured, which Jeff Claw has updated since and actually investigating up close, it looks and appears natural, okay? So I guess that kind of debunks this part of the mystery within the bigger mystery of the Kenny Veach M Cave disappearance case, right? So that's good. We're ticking it off the list as we go along. What I do want to highlight is, if really Robin took notice at the time, now granted, if Robin at the time had the same perspective and outlook as Jeff Claw did when, you know, walking past the rock or walking up to it, you probably wouldn't think much of it, right? Because at least from Jeff Claw's photos, there isn't much to that rock. And obviously, with your own eyes as well, it'd probably still not look, you know, much or anything special. The only exception is with Jeff Claw. Jeff was specifically going there to locate that rock to see whether or not there was anything on it up close. Because at least from the perspective of really Robin, from a distance, it definitely looked like a symbol at the time, but that was probably because of the lighting and the shadows casted, which can make things more defined and appear when there's not much to it, if you got up close to it or if you looked at it from a slightly different angle, a different time of the day, right? So that's probably why Robin didn't think much of it, because he was more so focused on the M cave in Kenny Veach that a simple rock on the ground in the distance you wouldn't really bat an eyelid to. But if Robin saw it how we did from his footage, then it should have been searched and checked. But at the same time, looking at that symbol, at least in English when you look at it, it does not represent an M. It had to be translated, which Atari did. So there's that. If you're not aware of different languages or letters in the alphabet in other languages, you're not going to pick up on it at the time, or just like less likely to, right? So I don't understand that. But you know, being realistic, if Robin actually recorded a bit more, at least, not even investigating it, but just walking onwards, right? Walking past it, so we could get a closer look at the image, so we could pause the video and zoom on in a bit closer, because obviously from a distance when you zoom in, the quality will be impacted negatively. So some things can be a bit obscure or maybe a bit obstructed depending what's in sight, and the pixels and the grain quality as well does play a major factor, right? So basically, if Robin went up closer to it, it could have been debunked a lot quicker, okay? But the most important thing in all of this, right, is ticking things off the list. Because as good as mysteries are, and sub-mysteries, it can get a little bit cluttered, a bit overwhelming. If you can tick things off the list, it makes it a bit easier to follow along and focus on just one thing at a time rather than multiple, right? So there is positives to this. And for further clarity and depth from the likes of Jeff Claw, from his point of view, his experience and thoughts and possible footage, which could be coming shortly, be on the lookout for that, because it could reinforce this analysis and just the overall conclusion of this sub-mystery in relation to the M Cave, hence the title of this video, because originally the supposed symbol translated to the letter M, as in M Cave, hence why it was called this. And also take in mind that we do create titles of mysteries or locations with time based off the person that's either discovered it themselves first, their thoughts of it, or the characteristics it shares with the place, or how it is individually. Titles and specific key words are needed so it's more memorable with time. Kind of like the covered M Cave. It might not be an actual cave. It might not be the M cave, but the shape, the characteristics, as Kenny pointed out, a place like here, and Sean Holecker investigating it first time round, 2019, you know, we need key lines, we need keywords of areas of interest so it's easier to refer back to, and then more people will know what we're talking about, instead of just calling every location point 1, point A, point B, point 2, point 4, part 5. It gets too confusing now, right? Specific words, memorable lines lead to a better memory recollection with time. Okay? So hopefully you found this video interesting. Appreciate it if you managed to watch all the way through. You see from the start of this video, if you haven't, be sure to rewind back, catch up there for the full story of how things came about here. Make sure to catch up on my recent videos as well, top right corner of the screen where the eye symbol is. Click on that, you'll be able to catch up there. If you want to leave your comments and your thoughts, your opinions of all this, or just your thoughts of the quality of this video, leave it down below in the comments section. You'll also find a pinned comment by me down there if you want to support this channel. Okay. Hopefully you found it interesting. I'll see you next time. Goodbye. Good night for now.